Black and white photography. Well, guys, do we really need to edit our black and white images? Because I had a few comments saying, why do you edit your black and white images if they're just in black and white and no color? Well, of course you need to edit your black and white images, or else you're just going to get flat, boring, dull looking black and white photos. So come along with me, guys, on location, and I'll show you the image that we'll be editing today. It's going to be this chapel over here. It's a medieval chapel in Dingley in Malta. And we'll be editing this image in black and white. And I'll show you the amazing tools you can use to create magnificent black and white images instead of those boring, dull looking flat images that you usually take. We have a few tourists here today, guys. I'm going to have to wait until they leave, and I'm going to take a few shots using my Fujifilm X-T4, and I just purchased a new Viltrox 13mm lens, which is really impressive. So come along with me, guys, and we'll take a few shots. And then we'll head back down to the studio and we'll begin the editing process. I'll see you, everyone, and I'll catch you later. So this is the image we'll be taking, guys. I'm going to try and find the composition. Well, I'm going to set up my camera. I'm going to take a few shots, and I'll see you later. Well, here we are, guys, back in the studio, and this is the composition I chose. And we're going to make a masterpiece out of this color image and turn it into black and white. So stay with me, everyone, till the end of the video, and I'll show you all the editing tools we need to get this image into a masterpiece level. I already know how I want this image to look, and I'm going to show you what I have planned out in my mind. I'm going to start off with a linear gradient on the top, maybe 2 linear gradients, a linear gradient for the bottom here. So we balance out the image. We need to draw the viewer's eye to the center of the image, which is the chapel, the subject. And then I'm going to create a radial gradient over the upper part of the foreground. I'm going to lighten up these tiles here and the stairs, and even I'm going to lighten up the pathway, this wooden pathway also. I'll be increasing the topper parts of the bushes here, lighten them up as well. We'll be doing lots of dodging and burning, and I'm gonna do some dodging and burning on these walls here. I'm gonna do some dodging and burning on the chapel here, on the bricks, the stones, the limestones, and I'm gonna make a cast shadow over the door and darken a bit of the wooden door here as well. I'm going to highlight a bit of the clouds here, and I think that will be about it. So let's begin the editing process, everybody, and please stay with me throughout the video, and I'll show you how to get your images from a dull looking black and white image into an image that can give you the wow factor. So let's start with the exposure panel, which we always do, and don't forget we'll be increasing the saturation of the whole image and then turning it to black and white. So our aim is to increase saturation and vibrance for the image so we get better details in every part of the image when we turn it to black and white. So I'm going to start off by lowering the highlights, so we have more detail in the skies, and I'm going to increase a bit of shadows so we get some more details in the dark parts of the bush here. I'm going to increase the whites, and I'll be holding down the Alt key also, and I'm going to push the slider to the right until we see clippings on the histogram up here on the right side, and until we see on the black screen in front of us the blue parts where the highlights are, and we just dial it down a bit. I'm going to do the same for the blacks, everyone. Hold the Alt key and make sure we don't have any clippings on the left side of the histogram. And I'm going to dial it down a bit more to remove the white screen where we have the black parts on the white screen. And I think I've just increased the blacks just a bit, and it's okay. Next, I'm going to increase a bit of contrast to give it that punchy look. And I think I'm going to reduce the exposure so we balance out the histogram in the middle. And I'll show you what I mean. And there we have a perfect exposure on the histogram here. And now from here, I'm going to go down to the effects panel. I'm going to give it a touch of texture, which I always do, to around 15. And a touch of clarity also. I was using the Viltrox 13mm lens, which is very sharp. And we get sharp details from every edge of the image. I just purchased this lens, and I'm very happy with the results. I'm going to increase a bit of dehaze also to around there. I'm going to dial it down to a 10 or 11, and from here I'm going to go down to the detail. I'm going to reduce the radius, which I always do, and increase the detail all the way up to 100. I'm going to just increase the sharpening a bit to around 50, since the image is already quite sharp. And here I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to move the masking slider until I see white where I want the sharpening to be. We don't need sharpening on the clouds, just maybe the outer edges. And there we have our sharpening ready also. Next, we're going to start with the color. Like I said, we want to increase as much as we can color, but don't over exaggerate it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the blue primary saturation. And there we have, well, we already increased it to 100. I'm going to dial it down a bit more until I find the correct balance, which should be okay. And I think around 80 is enough. I'm going to do the same for the green primary saturation. Don't worry if you see it's going to be oversaturated. Like I said, that's what we need to convert it to black and white. And I'm going to do the same for the red primary. And there we have our image in full color. So here I'm going to take it over to Photoshop. Like I say in my other videos, I do not use the black and white button up here. I prefer Photoshop. Will give me a much better black and white image. So I'm going to click on the open down here. I do not use a smart object, and I'll show you why once we come back into Adobe Camera Raw from Photoshop. So I'm going to press open. Well, here we are in Photoshop, guys. I'm going to make a duplicate background. Just click on it and drag it down to the plus sign here on the right corner. just in case we make a mistake. Now here we're going to transform it to black and white, and we're going to go down to the right corner on the black and white circle, the adjustments layer, and I'm going to click on black and white. And here is the main reason why I told you to over exaggerate the saturation, colors and vibrance of the image, so we can play around with the sliders as much as we want to adjust the individual colors that we chose. So I'm going to start off with the reds. Just keep your eye on the screen and you'll see the reds moving up and down. Don't go too much, just subtle movements of the slider, and choose which you prefer, to make it darker or lighter. And I think I'm going to just decrease it a bit. Do the same for the yellows. Move your slider up and down, and it's increasing the middle part of the image. And here, double click to go back where you were and increase it just a touch like that. I'm going to do the same for the greens. It's affecting the grass, the bushes, and I think I'm going to increase it also. Remember, always subtle movements. I'm going to try the cyan. It's affecting the sky. And here I think I'm going to decrease the cyan just a bit. Now the blues are going to have a huge effect. Watch the screen, guys. And obviously it's affecting the sky and the part of the sea. Double click to go back where you are. And I'm going to darken the skies just a touch. Try the magenta. It's not doing much, so I'll leave it how it is. Close this panel. And now I'm going to head back down to the adjustments layer again. And I'm going to click on the gradient map. And this is where we'll be turning the image into a much finer black and white image. I had a comment last week that the image turned out like a negative, and I'll show you what you need to do to do that, to get rid of it. First, click on this drop down window and click on Classic. You can try these other ones if you want, but I always click on Classic because that's the perfect one you get. And there our image is much finer in black and white. And if your image has a negative effect, just click on this gradient here, double click, and you move the black slider to the right, or the white and the white slider to the left, and then you have your proper gradient. And I'm gonna close this image now, and I'll show you the difference by using the gradient map. Click on the eyeball, and you see the difference. When I mean, you get a much better black and white image. And now I'm going to close these panels here, these layers, I mean, guys. I'm going to click on here and click flatten image. And from here we'll be taking it back over to Adobe Camera Raw, or if you're using Lightroom, Lightroom. Click on filter, Camera Raw filter. And here we are back in Camera Raw. Now this is the reason why I told you I do not use Smart Object, because I want to readjust. Give me 1 minute. I want to play around with this exposure panel again, because if you do a Smart Object, you'll get the previous settings you've done before. So I'm going to reduce the highlights, and there we get much more detail in the sky. You don't have to go all the way down. I'm going to leave it to around there. I'm going to increase the shadows again to around there. I'm going to try the whites. Check your histogram for clippings. And if you want to hold down the Alt key also. And I'm going to dial it down until I don't see any clippings of the whites. Same for the blacks. I'm going to dial it back down to around there. I'm going to give it a touch of contrast. Contrast is important for black and white images. And here I'm going to decrease just a touch of exposure to about there. And here we begin the fun part of masking, which is the main thing that will create your images into black and white masterpieces. You always need to use masking for creating black and white images. Like I said in the intro, beginning of the video, I had a comment saying, why do you edit your black and white image? Because they're just black and white and you have no color. But editing black and white is much more important than editing color images, because you're just, like I said, going to get a flat, dull image. So we're going to start off with the masking, and we're going to start, like I said, with a linear gradient. And we'll be using this for the sky. Going to drag it down maybe around halfway. As you can see, we're affecting the chapel, the top part of the chapel. All you need to do, guys, is just click these three dots here and click intersect mask and select sky. And the mask will be removed from the chapel. Just like that. And now here I'm going to reduce the exposure to around there. And now I'm going to use another linear gradient. Click on create mask and linear gradient. And I'm going to use it for the sky again. But I'm not going to go down as much as I went with the first linear gradient. Just to around there. I'm going to again click on the three dots and intersect mask and select sky. And here I'm going to reduce the exposure again, just for the top part. Should be okay. And now I'm going to use another linear gradient, but I'm going to use it for the foreground, for the lower part of the foreground. And it's going to take it up to about there. And I'm going to reduce the exposure also. I think there should be enough. We're already seeing a difference in the image. I'm going to click on the eyeball here. That's without the masking, and that's with the masking. We haven't finished. We're going to continue. I think I'm going to use another linear gradient for the foreground. So we balance the image and we get the darker part of the image, the top part, the same as the bottom part, if you know what I mean. If you want to hold down your upper arrow on your keyboard and you get a straight linear gradient. And I'm going to decrease the exposure also. And that should be about right. So the next step I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to use another mask, but I'll be using a radial gradient. And like I said, I'm going to place it over the bushes here, just the top part of the bushes. And I'm going to increase the exposure. And like this, we'll be doing dodging and burning. Open it up. I'm going to decrease it just a bit more. Always remember, don't exaggerate. I'm going to use another radial gradient. If you don't want to keep clicking on create mask, you have shortcuts here. A radial gradient is J, the linear gradient is G, and if you want to use the brush, just press K on your keyboard. And I'm going to use a radial gradient, and I'm going to use it over the other bit of the bush here. And I'm going to increase the exposure. I'll open it up a bit more. Should be great. I'm going to use another radial gradient for the other side on this bush here. Remember guys, all these small details will give you a really fantastic image. Don't be lazy. Take your time. Have a break, come back later, start again, and you'll see the amazing difference when you're using masking. I'm going to use another radial gradient, and like I said, I'm going to place it over the lighter part of these stone tiles here. To about there, and I'm going to increase the exposure. But first guys, as you can see, I've gone over the steps here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract with a brush. Press subtract here and use brush, and I'm going to minus away on the steps here. That should be okay. I've gone over on this wall also, and here. And here I'm going to increase the exposure like I said. Don't over exaggerate, as you're going to get this weird looking image like that. Just remember subtle movements, and don't forget you can come back later and adjust it accordingly. You have to let your eyes rest for a bit and then come back and adjust them. Now I'm going to use a brush here for the steps, but first I think I'm going to zoom in a bit to be a bit more precise. And here I'm going to reduce the brush size, and I'm just going to paint away on here. Don't worry if you go a bit overboard. Reduce the brush size. And remember, like I said, patience, and you'll get rewarded with amazing results. If you think you've gone too far, just subtract and use the brush to remove the mask where you don't want it. I've gone on this wall here, and here I'm gonna increase the exposure also. Not too much. Should be okay. I'm gonna zoom out again, and I'm gonna check the exposure again for the steps. You see, when you go too much, start off with 0 and work your way up slowly. That should be okay. Next, I'm going to use a brush for the chapel here. We'll work our way on the chapel. But before I forgot, I'm going to increase here as well, this wooden pathway. This wooden pathway goes all the way around the church, because this chapel is situated on a cliff's edge, and you get a lovely view from behind the chapel. I'm going to use a brush here for the pathway, and I'm just going to paint away like that. Don't worry about the wooden parts here. I'm going to increase the exposure. And there we've increased the pathway also. You can check the before and after. It should be great. Next I'm going to use another brush. I'll be clicking K on the keyboard. And then we got ourselves a new brush. And I'm going to start some more dodging and burning, and I'm going to paint away on these whiter parts of the stone wall here. You don't have to be precise, guys. And I'm going to increase the exposure here. And that's dodging and burning by increasing exposure or lowering the exposure. I'm going to create another brush, pressing K on the keyboard, and I'm going to go over the darker parts. And here I'm going to decrease the exposure. And that should be great. And now I'm going to do the same for the chapel, the facade of the chapel here. I'm going to press K again. And I'm going to go over the lighter parts of the image here, just like we done on the wall. And I'm going to increase the exposure. Not too much, it should be okay. And I'm going to do the same for the darker parts of the facade. Click K, give me a new brush. You don't have to be precise, guys, for this bit. And I'm going to decrease the exposure. Just a touch. And that touch can make a huge difference. Now I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to do some dodging and burning on the chapel door. And here we'll be using the brush again. I'm going to click brush, and you can see we have like a shadow around the outer edge of the door, because the sun was shining from the right side. And I'm just going to paint away like that. When you spill over onto the wall, like before, just use subtract brush and remove it from the wall. If you want to keep a straight line, all you need to do is click once, press the upper arrow, and click again, and you get a straight line to remove your mask. But for the sake of the video, so it doesn't take that long, I'm gonna do it roughly. And here I'm gonna darken the part of the door to around there, and that should be okay. I'm going to use another brush, guys. Clicking K on the keyboard, and here I'm going to go just over the door, but don't go over the part where you decreased the exposure. I'm going to use another subtract brush just to get like a straight line here. And I'm going to increase the exposure just a touch. I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to check the exposure for the door again. And that should be great. And we'll be creating a 3D effect when we do this dodging and burning stuff. I always decrease the image size so I can see more accurate. And I'll see where I'm going. I usually take a 10-minute break here, and I come back later and check it if we've gone too far with the dodging and burning or the exposure slider, and we adjust it accordingly. Just if you hover over these masks, and it will give you where you've done your masking, and you can adjust the masking how you like. Excuse me. So we're nearly finished with this image, everyone, and I'm going to finish off with a radial gradient. Well, not exactly finish off, it's still got a bit more, but we're getting closer to the end of the editing. And here I'm going to place this radial gradient just around the chapel, and I'm going to increase the exposure just a touch, just like that, because you want to draw the viewer's eye to the main subject, which is the chapel. And now I'm going to use another radial gradient, and I'll be creating, like I said, the sun was shining from the right part of the image. It was a cloudy day. The sun wasn't that bright though. I'm going to create an effect to where the sun was, and I'm going to increase the exposure just a bit. I always place the radial gradient outside the image when doing the sun effect, and I'm going to increase just a bit of exposure. I'm going to open it up a bit more, and that should be great. I'm going to see the before and after, and that should be fine. I'm going to use another radial gradient, and I'm going to place it exactly where I had the sun radial gradient, as you can call it. I'm going to open it up more, and here, maybe you've guessed from my previous videos, if you watched them, we'll be creating that natural vignette, and don't forget to invert it. I'm going to open up just a touch, and here we reduce the exposure for a vignette. I'm going to close it a bit. I'm going to reduce the exposure again. Always experimenting, don't go too far. And I think that should be just great. So the next thing I'm going to do, guys, one more radial gradient. I'll be creating another vignette. I like placing masking on top of each other to get that subtle effect on your image. I'm going to invert it, And I'm going to decrease the exposure just a bit. To around there. Going to head out of the masking, guys. And here I'm going to take it back to Photoshop. Yes, you heard right, back to Photoshop. And I'm going to do one more adjustment. And we'll be using the curve tool in Photoshop. I don't like using the curve tool in the camera or Lightroom. I prefer Photoshop one. So I'm going to go over to Photoshop. Click OK. And here we are back in Photoshop, everyone. And here I'm going to go down to the adjustments layer and click on curves. And here we're going to give some life to the image. I'm going to click on this drop down window here and click on linear contrast. And here, what I do normally, the curve tool, you know guys, you have that S shape here, but I'm going to adjust the lower part of the S shape. I'm going to press the upper arrow on the keyboard and I'm going to get the darks to where they were. I'm going to click on the whites, this button here, on the upper S part, and I'm going to click the upper arrow on the keyboard and raise the whites. To around there. I'm going to raise a bit more blacks. And that should be great. I'm going to check the before and after, pressing on the eyeball here, on the layer we just created. And it gives you that slight pop for your image. And that should be great. I'm going to flatten the image here. Well, I think that's about it, guys. I'm going to show you one last tip. If you want to give a border for your image, you can just duplicate the background by dragging down here, head over to image, click on canvas size, change these pixels to centimeters, millimeters or inches if you prefer. I'm going to click on centimeter and I'm going to make 8 centimeters for the width and 8 centimeters for the height and press OK. And there we have our border. I'm going to reduce it a bit. To about there. You can leave it like this if you want, but if you want to go a bit further, I'm going to show you how to do a drop shadow. Just click on FX down here on the lower part right side. Click on drop shadow. It's going to open up a window and we have a drop shadow on the left side, but I prefer it on the right side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go on this clock here or dial, or you can call it. I'm going to move it to around 130. And it's going to give me the drop shadow on the right side. Because it's my preference, I like it on the right side. And there we have our final image, everyone. I know it's a lot for editing, but if you enjoy editing like I do, I don't think you'll be bothered. Well, thank you guys. Hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and I'll be sure to answer. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in another video. Thank you guys, and thanks for everything.